And thank you for having me here. It's great to be at an organization that's dedicated to competition, because as you'll find out from what I'm going to speak about, in many terms in government, competition is the only thing that you can have to help you drive the reform. So I'm Liam Maxwell. I'm the National Tech Advisor of the British government. I'm from the United Kingdom. It's a medium-sized country, about the size of 2 big Brazilian states on the corner of Europe. And I'm going to talk a bit about the tech and digital reform that we had in the United Kingdom. You mentioned earlier the great startup approach that we had in government and in the economy. And I would say we found a lot of our work was much easier if we thought of ourselves as a startup. So from that sense, I'm from a tax collection and public service delivery startup. We're in our 323rd year of funding, and we're trying to deliver services for our citizens at a lower rate. So let me click. This is the challenge that we had when we started, and this is the challenge that all governments start to face. There are 4 stages of growth within our digital economy. We can exploit and grow, we can engineer a solution, we have to orchestrate the way that we work with our government so that we can accelerate and act as a catalyst to economic growth. But a little bit of perspective in the way that we had to approach this was we had to stop the self-harm as well. We had to stop the way we were working as a government. So we talked a little bit there about how much you spend in Brazil. In the UK, we were spending 1% of our economy on government IT, which was a tremendous amount of money to spend on something that my minister even described as Olympic grade, but he didn't say it was Olympic grade good. And the problem we had was the models we were building and the way that we built our technology was not built at the speed that technology and digital services work. It was built for government at government speed. And also, because we were in the government, we felt we were very special. And so we designed and made lots of things that should be commoditized, and we made them ourselves. And while this was intellectually very interesting, it actually meant we locked ourselves into technology. And we went one step further than that, because we then locked all of our technology into big black box contracts, which meant that we were beholden to a series of large technology companies to whom we had given all of the responsibility of delivering our government. We couldn't work fast enough. We couldn't keep up. And we had to change our shape. Now, many of you will hear the use of the word silo, the idea of a grain silo. But government works in a very strange way. It's organized like this. It's probably the only organization in the world that's deliberately organized like this. And it's interesting because digital and technology operates on platform levels. It operates across the piece. So there's a fundamental problem with the organization structure. And we used one word to try and unpick this. We made things open. And if you go away with one thing today, please remember that word. Open is what drove our change. It was our main tool of disruption. We believe in open markets. We believe in open source because we believe it's faster. We believe in open data, and we believe in open standards. It's really important that we have these 4 key focuses to begin with. Open data means that we publish what we do, not just landmark figures. We publish everything that you do. So that if you want to see the British government working, you can go to a page online and see how many people are actually applying for a driving license right now. Deep down in the murky world of what the government does, we're transparent about how many people do it and how it works. And it was particularly telling to hear about your work in the Ministry of Health here and how much money you save just by opening up and looking at how much you spent on drugs. We code in open source. So everything that we build as a government, we build in open source, which means we can share it. It means that we open ourselves up, not just to a workforce that is our own. We open ourselves up to a workforce around the world who can help collaborate and help us develop systems at speed. We believe in open standards. We had a particular contest over open standards with a large technology company. But if you're going to be using the internet to help you run your government, you're going to be using a shared resource, you have to have open standards to base all of your design and development on. And also open markets. We had to fundamentally change the way we bought the services that came together to drive our government. So technology was moving faster. We had to get free to keep up. We also had to bring in controls. So we brought in a thing called spend controls. Every spending over £5 million came into the minister, so that you could check that people were buying things in a similar way across government. And we didn't buy things twice. And we found ourselves confronting this. This is what I call the square of despair. So this allows you to see these 4 barriers will be in the way when you want to change any form of institution, like a government, like an insurance company, like a regulated bank. These 4 things always come up to get you. Number 1, capability. You need to be able to hire people to come and work for you. So you need great people, you need quality, and quality follows quality. So we hired 200 people, but we hired them to come into the government and then to leave. We hired specifically so people would get experience working in government, but also then move on to another industry, and hopefully move back to government. But there's nothing like a government to help your CV, because it's only in a government that you work at a nation scale, that you can change the lives of everybody, which you find very difficult in the private industry. We had legacy, so we had hundreds and hundreds of IT systems that were built using COBOL and built using very old IT systems, very old methodologies, very old hosting paradigms. And in fact, the way that we changed this was we created a hotel for them. We created the Hotel California for government IT. This is a place where you can take all of your old IT and stick it in a shed, and we will help it die gracefully. Now that's a technical approach. It saves us billions of pounds, but the fundamental idea there is cultural. What we're doing is taking the culture of saying keep going with what you've got and make it a little better, and saying stop that. Stop it. Put this stuff away. It's not going to get better. Start with something new. Start building at the 1,000th of the price, but in a way that works for your citizens. We had to change our security posture, so we weren't dealing in our public service realm in the same way that we were dealing in our national security realm. A government is a public service delivery service. So we should operate like an insurance company or a great public service consultancy. We shouldn't be operating like our military wing. So we had a new approach to technology, and this fundamentally meant put your systems in the public cloud. That's a really big step. Put your systems in the public cloud, because the public cloud, done well, is more secure, is more stable. At the price that you get massive resilience, and the capability provided is there. But also, look at yourselves. You're a government. You are not a data center company. So behave like a government in delivering service and regulating and convening and communicating and taxing, and stop trying to make yourself in the data center business. It's not for you. And then procurement. We had to change the way we procured so that you could start to buy things in the right way. Don't buy like this. Don't buy big silos. Buy multi-source. This is much less risky. This is much more convenient. This is much simpler. This is much more effective at delivering services, to buy the components rather than buying from one large organization. And to do that, we introduced this new term, which I call GCloud. The GCloud was the way of doing this. It was our procurement framework that enabled people to buy services simply, effectively, in contracts, in English. The latest one now, you can buy an outcome. You can buy the service delivery of an outcome, so that you can define what you need. And this led to a whole change in our economy of provision, because by buying like this, we opened up our market. Our supply chain was 12 companies in 2010. 12 companies spending 1% of GDP. Now we have more than £1 billion going through small companies, small, medium enterprises, some of whom are no longer small, medium enterprises because they've grown. And government provides a huge stimulus for economic growth if you aim to change the way that you buy. 52% of our spending is with small businesses. The effect on our digital economy has been enormous because people will start buying in this way, but also our regulated industries, our banks, our insurance companies, start to see that you can buy from small businesses because you're buying from the best, not the biggest. And this is the same approach that several other governments are having. We formed a group of governments that work rather similarly to us. On the bottom right, Korea. On the left, Estonia. And the two top ones are New Zealand and Israel. And if you're a real internet nerd for government, you'll notice that those two websites look quite like gov.uk. And the reason for that is because they are gov.uk. We're a government. We don't compete. We have a geographical license, a monopoly in our particular area. We're never going to come and try and set up a function in Brazil, so we should just share what we have. And that's why we work in open source. And so let's see how we're doing. We've stopped the self-harm, and in our traction to the right there to generate economic growth, we're starting to engineer a solution. We're using service-oriented architecture to engineer a solution which works to enable business to interact with government, to enable citizens to work with government, to enable citizens to get the services they need. And the countries there that are working, well, you'll see Israel, the UK, Sweden, Singapore. Singapore's always ahead. But two countries I'll point out. One was in your magazine last week, India. So Digital India is now getting to that stage where they've engineered a solution that works for them, which is enabling them to carry out massive reforms. I went to India on the Prime Minister's visit in November last year, and as we left, Prime Minister Modi removed the banknotes, the high-value banknotes, and they could only do that because they had an identity linked to a bank account, linked to a Know Your Customer scheme, linked to a mobile phone. That's tremendously powerful. And the only other country that's even got halfway towards solving this, but they're a long way ahead of everybody else, is Estonia. And I really recommend have a look at Estonia because they have designed their government. It's all been designed by engineers. It's all been designed to run at enormous efficiency and low cost, with digital signatures driving the change, driving the ability for people to use government identity to support their government work or their non-government work. It brings certainty and trust. And it'd be interesting to see where Brazil comes in this. I was really heartened to read the paper on Digital Brazil, which was issued, and as part of this group. And the framework that you issued in that was excellent. We had a conversation about this last night. The one thing missing in there is really strong cybersecurity functions. It's an area where the UK is particularly strong. We have a national cybersecurity centre with a budget dwarfing other departments so that we have a safe and secure internet. And I really recommend you look at that. But the key change that has been made by governments to make it work is this. This is the future. So on my right is Taavi Rõivas, the Prime Minister of Estonia, and he's handing Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, her Estonian e-identity card so that she can sign digital documents using her identity. Because Estonia, like the UK, is committed to open source solutions. And this is why, in this way, we're able to start to learn from each other and use our components to accelerate our digital governments, not just to make government more efficient, not just to make savings in our administration, but actually to create jobs. And when you create jobs, you generate tax. And when you generate tax, you can create better public services. And that's why in the government we're so committed to growing a strong digital economy, because not only will it help Britain grow, it will also help Britain deliver excellent public services. And that's right at the heart of the public strategy we have for digital. I hope this helped explain our methods. And I think we're going to have a fairly free and frank discussion now. Thank you.